Welcome to Keep What You Earn, a show for entrepreneurs and business owners who want to scale and build enterprise value without making costly mistakes. I'm your host, Shannon Weinstein. I'm a CFO and CPA who left a career serving Fortune 50 companies in Wall Street to help business owners just like you make life-changing wealth with your business. These episodes are meant to be super tactical and actionable, but please remember, consult your own financial professional before you implement anything you learn in this podcast. Now, if you'd be interested in working with us to do so, check out the show notes for more information about our company, Keep What You Earn Co. All right, let's start the show. So I've had a focus lately to produce episodes helping you get ready to sell your business, or at least become aware of what it will take to sell your business. But what I have not done is really outlined what type of businesses are typically sellable and which are not. And I actually want to focus this episode on businesses that I consider to be difficult to sell. I'm frankly unsellable. And for a lot of people listening, this might include your business. And here's the thing. It doesn't mean that it's not a good business. It doesn't mean that it's not a good idea. It doesn't mean that you can't run it. It doesn't mean anything about you or your business. It means that I think that it would be a very challenging thing to sell in terms of turning it into an asset that you can then transfer ownership of to somebody else. That may not be in your plans, and that is okay. So if it's not in your plans to ever sell your business and you don't want to build a sellable business, then that's okay. But I want to disclaim that before I dive in, because I know that folks listening to this will hear their own type of business embedded in this, and that is not necessarily a bad thing. But I do think that you're going to have an immense challenge at building enterprise value with these types of businesses if you're planning to sell. What you should focus on instead is generating cash flow, consistency, not burning yourself out, enjoying the process, but understand that you will probably simply dissolve or fizzle out the business at a certain point. And that is okay. But I want you to make sure that is a realistic goal for you and that you're not thinking you're going to sell this in the future. There are ways to turn it around though. And that's what I actually want to uncover is in what ways you can have a sellable business or turn these into sellable businesses, if that is in fact your goal. So let's start with this. Basically, anything built on a personal brand is going to be challenging. And not just a personal brand that supports a core business, but what I'm talking about is personality-driven businesses like influencers, coaches, any type of celebrity element to what you do. If the owner is on a pedestal and is the face of the brand and essentially the product, then this is going to be a big challenge for you. It's difficult to systematize or replicate the brand without that person. It is nearly impossible to operate without them. And the revenue is tied to a personal level of trust or their charisma. And that is very difficult to transfer. Okay, there are exceptions to this. I mean, look at Tony Robbins, for example. Now, he is a vast exception and outlier. But if you think about Tony Robbins as a coach, there are plenty of coaches that were trained underneath him under his methods. And he is able to deliver value through his company by deploying out those coaches using that method. But here's the exception. He has a method. He has a tried and true process. He has something proprietary. They were trained by him. And he has that notoriety and that degree of celebrity that is extreme, where simply being in his atmosphere is value add. So unless you can hit that level, which is very difficult to do and something that would require a significant amount of sacrifice, if you're planning to reach that level and you think you can compete with that, that is fine. But most likely not going to attain that. Most likely you will have your method, you'll have your little secret sauce that you can deliver on, and your business will last as long as you can do that. That is just the truth. Now, there's more of that in like health and wellness, motivational speakers, keynote speakers, YouTube content creators, things like that. That at a certain point, unless you are making the content transferable, if you are delivering value, regardless if it's you saying it, then you have something. But if you heavily rely on your voice to do it, you're in trouble if you plan to scale it or plan to sell the brand in the future or build something of value. Now, the other thing I'm going to bring up is online courses, course-only info or info products. And it's not for the same reason in terms of the person teaching. Hear me out, and this is my theory. First of all, there's a low barrier to entry. Anyone can put a course out there, and basically everybody has. In my opinion, everyone has essentially bought the courses that they're going to buy, made the courses they're going to make. For the most part in the online space, it's become saturated to a point. Courses are nearly obsolete or freely available through AI, through YouTube. There's very little that you can teach someone they cannot gather from these types of tools, or at least where they gain a major head start from them. There are high refund rates, not great retention. People aren't completing courses even if they buy them from you. So there really isn't a lot of stickiness there. They're also, and this goes back to kind of the coaching environment, is that a lot of people struggle with the escalation of the customer and the lifetime value of the customer. So what ends up happening is your lifetime customer value ends up being like $30, $50, $100 because you're competing on price. And then your customer is buying one course from you. They never finish it, and that's the end of it. Versus someone who maybe buys a course, then has access to an event, then has access to a membership, something like that with a recurring revenue stream. Or they get a course so that they can license your thing out and they can go make money with it. So you have to understand, how does the customer continue paying me and continue extracting value from something I'm providing? That is one thing that people aren't doing. They're offering these online courses, they're going out and launching them, making the money they do and letting it go. And that's it. And I think that is going to be short-lived if it's not already basically obsolete at this point. If you're lacking any sort of proprietary IP or a community or something specific that is unique to that is, worth hanging on for, that's going to be hard to sell. Now, I think that we want to focus on how these types of, we'll say, coaching practices or course models could actually create enterprise value. So if you are going to do a model, the one-to-one is not scalable. There's usually no recurring revenue, like I mentioned, but group programs with a standardized IP, a strong brand, and maybe trained coaches will have a shot. But again, you have to productize the delivery. You have to make it so that you are manufacturing this and that you are selling essentially the product of the method or the model, and that is your product, not the people. That you can slot any human into your model and it will still work. That is the challenge. Now, I'm going to veer off of coaching for a second and go into a different area. Hear me out. If you have a creative agency without any systems or IP, this is essential. If you don't have systems and IP, by the way, is intellectual property or something proprietary. Here's the thing. If you are relying on bespoke work, like custom everything, if you don't have standard deliverables, metrics, models, and dashboards, this makes your client acquisition unpredictable. This makes your, delivery unpredictable. It makes the delivery difficult to execute on because it's inconsistent.
Hey, it's Shannon, and I wanted to remind you that the love language of podcasters is reviews. If you wouldn't mind taking a couple of seconds just to leave us a review if you're enjoying this show, we would really, really appreciate it. Okay, back to the show.
And if you don't have any recurring revenue model, like let's say a marketing agency may have this, right? May have a recurring revenue model, may have an ability to do this. But if you're doing spot projects only, and especially if you're doing something in the creative space, which, by the way, I didn't really see this coming, where AI was going to come for the creatives first, in my opinion. What's happened with AI is we're seeing a lot of video, audio, visuals that are all created with AI. And it's becoming easy for the common user to go in and just make graphics. It's like Canva came along, we became our own graphic designers. Now we have our own graphic designers in ChatGPT and these other tools, right? So now it's moving into a lot of the creative being done through AI, which is fine. But I think a lot of the agencies are now scrambling to find a way to add value to their customers in a standardized way and to productize what they do. And I think they're coming for us accountants as well. I think they're coming for a lot of these types of professional services. And you have to be careful with what angle you take in terms of articulating your value and making sure that you are building not only a delivery model that works to productize your offer, but hear me out, a sales pipeline flow that also nearly guarantees, but consistency in your sales pipeline of people coming in the door. You want to make sure you're building retention. You want to make sure that you're building up a referral network, not overly relying on it, but you want to make sure that you're also building that sales pipeline constantly, not only through a personal brand, but through associating your brand with the values that you want to. It's also key. So the other thing is some of these like lifestyle brands, if you're white labeling, this is another one. If you're white labeling or drop shipping, and you don't have any sort of supply chain control, this is tricky because you're really kind of not integrated throughout your company, and it will be difficult to survive that, and it will be difficult to sell that in the long term. The other element is anything where you don't have a customer service infrastructure or a means to handle that. If you're a product business with no customer service infrastructure, that is going to be difficult. Um, the other one I think is interesting is anything that is overly indexed on affiliates. If you are overly indexed on affiliates, this can harm your ability to sell. Let me clarify this. Uh, if you are the affiliate, if you are making affiliate income, so if you're over indexing on affiliation with other companies, I should say, what happens is your revenue is dependent on someone else's product and you don't really have ownership of the customer data. You don't have ownership of the email list. You will get killed by social media traffic overnight if it does tank. If you're overly reliant on affiliate marketing, so to speak, and you are making money from commission, from boosting someone else's product, this includes a bit of what we consider multi-level marketing, I believe, then this is going to be a tough sell because A, anyone can slot into it and perform this work. B, it's heavily dependent on something that is fleeting, which is your reputation, your network, and social media that can change overnight. So it's a bit of a beautiful house built on stilts here, right? That at any point, the flood can come in and knock it over. So you have to be really careful with that. And then, of course, I'm talking about anything where you have a marketing engine with no back end business. I think this is basically common sense to me and hopefully anyone who listens to the show that if you have a podcast like Keep What You Earn and you decide, hey, I'm going to go start a podcast. I'm going to be the next Theo Vaughn. I'm going to be the next Joe Rogan. Like, I'm sorry, likely not, because we are already in a place where the barrier to entry is so low. Everyone is starting podcasts already. I went to a conference a few weeks ago and people were saying, should I start a podcast? And I said, absolutely not. And of course, this was very tailored advice to the particular people I was talking to, but I still hold true on this advice to say to start a podcast, you know, it's a distraction. It's another element of content to start at this point. I would recommend guesting on other shows if you're looking at marketing, but I digress. Why I think podcast related businesses are tricky, and I don't consider myself one of these, by the way, is if they don't have a foundational business to back up the podcast. So here at Keep What You Earn, my company, my CFO firm, is essentially funding the podcast. Why? Because I get amazing listeners like you who become interested in working with us. And two, I enjoy it. Three, it helps me get out a lot of these lessons I'm learning from clients and share this with everyone. And I'm glad you find it helpful. I've gotten great feedback. But the hard part is a lot of people have these podcasts and they don't see that it's backed by these other bigger companies. And they think it's just that easy to set up a podcast and that you're going to have this great success. The truth is, it's a costly venture and it can be a way to lose money if you don't connect it back to a revenue generating activity. You're going to hear me talk on the show all the time about the stuff that we do. Periodically, you're going to hear me talk about the fact that, yeah, we offer CFO services. Yeah, you can come and do a session with me and my team. We would love to have you. But that's because, hey, I'm running a business first. The podcast comes second. But I love doing the podcast. So by all means, let's do both. And let's figure out a way that both can coexist and that we can turn this into a revenue generating activity so we can do more of it. Now, those are kind of a rundown of all the different businesses that I think are essentially unsellable and I think actually have pretty short shelf lives. If you ask me, especially for riding any sort of trend, I think the overarching message here is that if you are riding some type of trend, if you are getting into something that is like a get rich quick type of thing, chances are it's fleeting, chances are it's not long lasting, and that you are basically going to be riding that wave. But enjoy the wave because there might not be anything left at the end of it. And that's just the truth. Like, look at certain things with crypto, certain things with like coaching, drop shipping, all this stuff. As soon as you want to get into these markets, everyone jumps in and then it's saturated and it's hard. So just remember that if you are trying to cut corners and trying to basically get a big exit on something, you have to be super niche into a certain industry at the right time and get lucky. Or you could take this advice and go for the long game and build longevity of your value so that you can sell it for like generational wealth in the future. I promise you. It's my fundamental belief that if you can work on building that lifetime value, that long-term value, it will serve you better. I nearly guarantee it. It will serve you so much better if you can focus on the behaviors that generate that. It will pay off, I promise.
As you think about growing and scaling your business, it's important to focus on how your operating costs align with your profit and personal goals. Are you allocating your resources wisely? Are your expenses supporting growth, or are they holding you back? Building a sustainable and profitable business takes intentional budgeting and regular assessments of where your money's actually going. Now, with a power session, you can get personalized strategies to help your businesses thrive. Check out the show notes for more information on power sessions and how we can work with you to create the profit plan your business needs for a successful 2025.